TSB, proud sponsors of About the House.
In this week's episode of About the House, I'll be making a final visit to Cathal and Sarah Stephens in Donegal to see how their ambitious Passive House standard renovation and extension of a 200-year-old cottage turned out. And I'll be following another smaller renovation and extension in Dublin, being done in far less time and on a much tighter budget. 2 years ago, architect Cathal Stephens and his wife Sarah embarked on a very ambitious project. They decided to move from the States back to Ireland, to windy Donegal, and not only renovate an old cottage, but bring it up to Passive House standards.
The Irish countryside is dotted with attractive vernacular cottages. These dwellings and farmsteads form an integral part of our heritage, and it's important that we keep this legacy alive. One couple who are doing exactly that are Cathal and Sarah Stephens.
Cathal was using all his knowledge as an architect to ensure the integrity of the cottage was not compromised during the renovations.
In the design work that I've done in adding to it and modernising it, I've tried to maintain that character, keep it and enhance it if possible.
Insulation, heat recovery ventilation, solar panels and a wind turbine were all features that were going to be integrated into this old building.
But what a wonderful site for wind, isn't it? Just, you couldn't pick a better place. It's fantastic. Yes. Look at today.
Look at today, perfect. And this is a typical Donegal day.
Yeah.
Donegal is actually one of the best places to harvest wind in Ireland, or perhaps even in Europe. And we do indeed have very good wind conditions.
Cathal has extensive experience as an architect and has worked on some very big projects during the course of his career. But even with this under his belt, I had a feeling this was going to take longer than he expected. He wanted to retain as many of the original features of the cottage as he could.
I see all granite stone walls.
Yes, all the walls of the old house are granite stone, 500mm thick. And you can see they have timber lintels with relieving arches over them. And this part has already been pointed actually by the previous owner, but we're going to do more of that similar kind of pointing in other parts of the house so that we'll expose more of the granite. It's not exposed on the outside, but it will be exposed on the inside. And over here we have an interesting situation where the old chimney was stained with smoke over the years seeping through the stone. So we're going to repoint that and clean it as best we can, but we anticipate that a lot of the stone staining will remain there and will be part of the history of the house.
Cathal was planning to clad his house in stone, which came from a very local source.
Where'd you get all the stone now for a site like this?
The stone came from the site. It came from right here.
But the stone was only the cladding on the outside of the house. Timber was being used for the structural frame itself.
Well, you have a lot of timber in this part of the house, Cathal.
Well, we do.
Storing a lot of carbon from the atmosphere, I'll tell you, it's great.
This is the bedroom.
Right.
And there's a bathroom behind us, behind this partition.
It's going to be a great bedroom, isn't it?
And whilst Cathal couldn't get everything from the site itself, he still wanted to make sure he was using an Irish product. Recently, we've seen a turn back towards using Irish wood as opposed to the Scandinavian woods we've traditionally imported. I went to meet Patrick from Murray Timber to find out why this is a good thing.
Hi Patrick, how are you? All of this Irish timber here?
Yeah, all Irish timber. The more we become a net exporter of timber as opposed to a net importer, which we were, we promote our own Irish jobs in factories like Murray's and other sawmills around the country.
So in the wider context now of Irish timber, how many people are employed in the whole chain for all of these softwoods?
It's in the region of 2,500 people, so it's quite considerable to the local economy.
I also discussed with Patrick why there used to be a negative attitude towards using Irish timber.
In the past, there was a lack of confidence in Irish timber.
Yes, Duncan, there was a perception that Irish timber, and the current perception that Irish timber to quality isn't up to scratch, up to the European, Scandinavian and German standards. But there's been significant investment in the Irish sawmilling sector over the last number of years. Take, for instance, our plant in Galway. It's built in the last 3 years. It's regarded by many of the sawmilling equipment providers as the best single-line sawmill in the world currently. We've had visitors as far away as New Zealand in the sawmilling industry to look at our plant in Ballygar in County Galway.
And have other now sawmillers done similar type of investments here?
There's been significant investment across the whole sector, to the degree that the Irish sawmilling sector would be probably one of the best in Europe currently.
Irish timber is now being certified to give it uniformity that makes it easy to work with.
Uniformity is a key one. When you're constructing the house, that every piece is the very same. We got reports back from end users that they can put a roof up in half the time.
It's also being regulated to ensure it has less than 20% moisture content, as well as an effective structural strength. I asked Patrick to tell me more about this. And what about from a structural point of view?
Structurally, that piece of timber that's in your hand has gone through an X-ray machine, as is all our timber. And it's strength graded to C16, and every piece has a moisture check on it.
It's important when buying timber to look for the CE stamp, as it guarantees that it has all the qualities and conforms to European standards. So the Irish timber industry is becoming something that we can all be proud of. And people like Cathal are leading the way back to using Irish timber. On my second visit to Cathal a few months later, things seemed to be progressing. Although there was still a great deal to be done on the house and lots of trades working on it, Cathal was getting impatient to get the build finished.
We are now anxious to get it finished, and we're hoping that'll happen in October. Sarah will be back, and we're both anxious to move in at the end of October.
Sarah had been away in Brazil for the birth of their grandchild, and I went up to meet her for the first time in October when she arrived back. I wanted to see if the house was ready to move into, as Cathal had hoped.
Hi Sarah, how are you?
Hello Duncan.
Very pleased to meet you. Yeah, I've heard all about you, you know. You were hoping to have this house finished quite soon, aren't you?
We were actually hoping to have it finished sooner than now, but we are hoping it'll finish in the next few weeks, yeah.
So how far are you gone now since the last time I was here?
A lot has happened since then. The building has been sealed and plastering is all complete. We're starting to paint, just getting ready to paint. Perhaps most importantly of all, our wind turbine is in.
So when do you think you'll move in?
Well, in the new year sometime.
Yeah.
While Sarah and Cathal had the very ambitious aim of making their renovation and extension attain Passive House Institute standards, it is possible to make your house more efficient without going to these extreme lengths. In Sandymount, South Dublin, I was following another renovation and extension, but with a much smaller budget and a much smaller timescale. Mary Taylor, the interior designer, had been given a tough job.
The house was built in 1981. The decoration hadn't been changed since that time. So what we found throughout the house was that it was very dated and tired and in need of a new lift. The kitchen hadn't been updated since 1981, so it didn't have the amount of storage that it needed or any of the appliances that you would require for modern living.
And the rest of the house was not set for modern living either. It all needed to go, as did the dated kitchen, if she was to bring the house into the 21st century.
We were going to open up the kitchen along with the room itself and bring in light and space and storage.
And there were more changes made in other parts of the house.
What we've done through the house in terms of the internal walls is that as you come through the main hallway, we have angled the walls so that we accommodate now a shower room downstairs. This will now lead into the main kitchen area, and we have put an extension on the back wall, so allowing light to come in from all angles.
But the changes that Mary needed to implement were not just cosmetic.
One of the requirements of the extension was that the house was brought up to a very high energy efficient level.
After the break, I returned to see if Mary can achieve her goal of updating this tired house, both in terms of its decor and efficiency. And I returned to Donegal a year later to finally see Cathal and Sarah's finished house. Will all the features Cathal installed be working effectively?
ESB, proud sponsors of About the House. ESB, proud sponsors of About the House.
Mary Taylor and her team were working hard to give a much-needed update to a two-storey terraced house in Sandymount. Now the work was over and we came back to see the finished job. The dated kitchen had been opened up and replaced to create a modern open-plan cooking and dining area that blends seamlessly with each other and the garden.
We have one line now of kitchen units along one wall. It was originally an L shape. We also incorporated an island into the kitchen. It allows all our utilities to fit in within the one space very neatly.
Upstairs, the structure hasn't even been changed, but it looks completely different.
The bedrooms themselves have been changed, and there's new carpet, there's new wardrobes, there's new walls, but there's no structural change. So it's all decoration and fixtures and fittings. It wouldn't have cost a lot to actually change it, but it has made an absolutely huge difference in terms of its feel.
And the formerly dated bathroom has been replaced with calmer shades and a beautiful freestanding bath. In the garden, despite making it smaller because of the extension, Mary used ingenious tricks to make it seem more spacious.
The garden has actually, although it has decreased in size, has increased in the sense of space. We decided to paint the shed, which actually has made it blend into the background so it doesn't stand out as it had before. So it makes the space feel bigger because there's no contrast. It blends into the background. Very simple idea, works really well.
And a lot of thought has gone into the lighting.
The lighting was chosen specifically so that each piece had its own style and its own design, and that it worked within a certain area of the room. So within the room, for example, over the work area, there's a large globe which gives off plenty of light within itself. Over the dining area, then we have a lovely dome-shaped feature light, which is actually got stucco work underneath it, which again is a beautiful feature if you're sitting down having a meal.
As the homeowner was very keen to increase the energy efficiency of his house, he'd have to make sure his lighting bills didn't offset the savings made by the sustainable features he had installed. In the age that we're living in, it's not particularly sustainable to have this amount of lighting. On my advice, Mary will be replacing these light bulbs with LED bulbs, which will use 1/10 of the amount of energy and last 20 times longer. And the other ecological features installed in the house ensure that it performs well in terms of energy. These included solar panels and insulation, as well as high-performing windows and a triple glazed door. So in the end, Mary transformed the house, not just in terms of decor, but by future-proofing it as well, turning it into a beautiful home that is economical to run. But back in Donegal, Cathal and Sarah had completed their more ambitious project and were hoping to achieve a virtually zero energy demand with very little CO2 emissions, not only from the running of the house, but the manufacture of it also. It was a year since my last visit, and I was back to see if they'd reached their goal.
Thinking back, is it what you conceived?
Oh, it's much more wonderful than I imagined it would be. The whole house is better than 100 times better than I ever imagined it would be.
Have you heard that before, Colin?
Yes, I'd like to use it tell my other clients.
Now it's on record. It's now said. 100 times better than you expected. Isn't that
yes.
Isn't that just fantastic to hear? Isn't it?
It is.
Cathal showed me some of the clever design features he'd put in the house.
So here's an unusual window. It looks in however, has got a very important purpose. It's to capture the western sun in the summer evenings. We have no other windows that face west, so this one sort of captures the setting sun in the evening and reflects it against the wall inside, and then you get a nice glow of light all the way up through here, and it really sort of creates a very unusual light in this space.
It's very soft light, isn't it?
Exactly.
So the western sun, kind of evening setting sun, penetrates through the glass, reflects off this wall here, and throws this glow.
Throws it back. Exactly.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
The bathroom looks very nice, doesn't it? It's great. I love the light into the bathroom here.
Well, some of that comes from this window, which is an east-facing window. Then we put a shutter on it to do a couple of things, to control the light and to give some privacy. So when it's open, we have got as much view as possible and as much light as possible. But then we can close it just to this point, so at 45 degrees, and that gives you full privacy in the bathroom, but still some reflected light, and even a view, actually, if you're sitting in the bath. So one of the things you get with the thick walls, because of the 400 millimeters of insulation, is that you get wide window sills, and that provides the great advantage of being able to do what we did here, splaying them first of all to widen the window inside and reflect more light and see more views. And of course the deep wall also provides a deep window sill which you can use for a seat, exactly.
Very nice.
And for putting things on and everything.
You've all the view here.
Yeah.
Just excellent. Lovely.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting detail. We have a big challenge where the insulation on the ceiling meets the insulation on the wall, or doesn't meet it. That's often the problem. You can't make them meet, and you don't have that continuity of insulation. So we did a lot of work in the eaves up here in order to give that continuity of insulation. And then to cover up that, we put this soffit all the way across. And we use that soffit for two things. First of all, as an enclosure for the ductwork for the mechanical ventilation, part of the heat recovery system. And secondly, we had a sort of a shelf on top, so we use that for an indirect lighting shelf. So we have that nice indirect soft light over the room.
And of course it softens the light here and it shows up the rafters very, very clearly, doesn't it?
It does.
And the beams.
And they were a feature of the old cottage that we wanted to retain.
Absolutely lovely.
Yeah. Really did work out well.
And it was great to see some of the features Cathal had shown me on my earlier visits incorporated into the finished house.
So this is the guest bedroom. It had been 2 bedrooms before, and we renovated to be one larger room.
And this was the stone where you want to leave exposed.
Yes, you remember that.
Yeah, you couldn't leave the walls on the outside exposed because you're insulating them.
That's right. And so, but we did want to expose some of the stonework, and some had been actually exposed before, and we wanted to expand that. So we stripped the plaster off these walls, and of course they exposed this stain, which is the smoke and soot oozing from the old online chimney.
It's like a piece of art, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, it's a memory of the old way of heating.
You kept all the old windows also, and this was a very clever way of doing it.
Yes, well, it was very important, I think, to keep the old sash windows that were in the front of the house before.
And this is triple glazed, is it?
This is triple glazed and airtight and insulated behind as well.
You can feel the cold air in here now.
You can,
amazing.
indeed, yeah.
The difference between inside and here.
That's right. So you get all the benefits of the high-performance window, as well as the look and the feel and the character of the original up and down sash windows that are actually so much part of the character of the old cottage.
Absolutely. And of course, I wanted to find out how things were going with the wind turbine. So how's your wind turbine working out, Cathal?
Well, it's making electricity for us. And actually, we've been keeping track. We've actually generated more electricity than we've used.
So the turbine is built to what's exempt at the moment in terms of height. How is it working at that low height here?
Well, yes, it's 13.5 metres high, which is the maximum allowed without specific planning permission. And it really isn't high enough. It probably wants to be about 20 metres or more in order to optimise the use of the wind and to avoid turbulence that you get at lower elevations. It should be over 20 metres, and that would be much more productive, probably 20–30%.
So what about the payback on your investment?
The payback is a very long one, and we didn't do it for financial reasons. The payback would be about, I think, 35 years before you'd actually repay the investment you made. If we were in the UK, or even in Northern Ireland, which is very close to here, there'd be a much better payback because the feed-in tariff there is so much better. You'd probably pay for it in 6 or 7 years.
But nevertheless, Cathal and Sarah have achieved their goal of being net producers of energy. and it's wonderful to see them settled into their extended and renovated cottage.
You've taken this cottage, you've given it a whole new lease of life, and probably given it a future for the next 200 or 300 years ahead by making it passive, where you don't need to depend on energy, and your greenhouse gas emissions are so low. It's wonderful.
I hope so. Actually, one of the nice things about the passive house idea is that it is an airtight building, and therefore, even though there may be a storm raging outside, you can see it, you can experience it, but you can feel very protected from it.
I've said that since I was first living in Ireland. You need to be outside or feel like you're outside, even if you're not. So you have to bring the outside in. And that's what I feel, Cathal. That is what you did the best.
It's wonderful to see a vernacular cottage like this being given a whole new lease of life and future-proofed, yet keeping the whole character of the building intact. I think Sarah and Cathal have done a wonderful job.
In our next episode of About the House, I'll be looking at a few different projects that show homeowners finding creative ways of working with the space they already have.
ESB, proud sponsors of About the House.